What is an apostille in Israel and how does it work? Hi, everyone. I'm Yoel Farkas. I'm the founder of Mr. Notary. I'm an attorney as well as a licensed notary in Israel. And this is probably one of the most common questions that I get asked as a notary. And so I thought I would do this video to go along with a blog post on our Mr. Notary website to help explain the process as best as we can. There's a lot of confusion, particularly in Israel, for the layperson regarding apostilles. And that's largely because there are two types of apostilles in Israel. By the way, for those coming to this video for the first time and they're wondering what I'm saying, let me spell out the words for you. Apostille is Apostille, apostille. And there are two types of apostilles available in Israel, which makes things very confusing for people. The first type of apostille that's available is on an originally issued Israeli public document, and that's available at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, okay, known as the Misrad HaChutz in Hebrew, the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, which is located across from Cinema City in Jerusalem on Begin Street. I believe it's Begin 9. Again, on my website, on the blog post that I'm doing in coordination with this video, I have information about that. And I'm stressing that this is on original Israeli documents. The original part is stressed as opposed to a photocopy, as well as Israeli documents. And I'm stressing the Israeli part because oftentimes I get asked, well, I've got a birth certificate that was issued in New York City. Can I get that apostille rather at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs? And the answer to that is no. The Ministry of Foreign Affairs is only going to deal with Israeli issued documents. So that's one type of apostille. I'm going to get more into that as this video proceeds. The other type of apostille that's available in Israel is on a notarization of a document. That document need not be original. It can be, okay? It can be a notarization of an original document, but it can also be a notarization of a copy of a document. It could be a notarization of a signature authentication, all sorts of different types of notarizations. And apostilles on notarizations of documents are available in Jerusalem anyways at the magistrate court. There are some other places where one can get an apostille on notarizations, but that's beyond the scope of this video. So just know in general terms in Jerusalem anyways, and in other jurisdictions across Israel as well, apostilles on notarizations of documents are available at the magistrate court. In Hebrew, that's known as the Hashalom court. Okay, in Jerusalem, it's next to the Russian compound in downtown Jerusalem, or next to the area, the city's municipality. Okay, and again, on my blog post, I get into the hours of operation and whatnot. As of the date of this recording, magistrate court hours are 8:30 a.m. to 1:30 p.m. rather, from Sunday to Thursday. They're not open on Friday and Saturdays. For the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, just going backwards, those are available based on the hours and days of operation of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, which is constantly being changed and revised. So again, check out the link on my blog post to find out more information about that. One more thing I'll add, as of the date of this recording, by the way, it's wartime, unfortunately. This is April of 2026, and therefore you should check out my blog post because as of now, as of this recording, magistrate court apostilles are only available on an emergency basis, which are very hard to obtain. And it's also not currently being done in their usual location. It's actually being done at Beit Atfus in Givat Shaul. And again, just bear in mind that it's very difficult oftentimes to get that emergency apostille. For the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, apostilles are only available on an emergency basis by advanced schedule appointment. So just bear that in mind as I record this video during wartime, that you should be mindful of that. If you're watching this, hopefully you're watching this when it's not wartime, then you can disregard this last part of my video regarding wartime emergency measures. Okay, but getting back to our topic, apostilles are confusing because there's two types, as I mentioned. There's apostilles on original Israeli issued documents at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, and there's apostilles on notarizations of documents at the magistrate court. Now, to further add to that confusion, there are also types of apostilles that are available digitally, okay, or electronically on digitally issued documents. Okay, so let's take an example. Let's say you obtained a death certificate digitally. Okay, that means you got it emailed to you because you entered the personal area, the Azor Ishi in Hebrew, of the government website, and you obtained the death certificate digitally. Then as of the date of this video recording, you cannot bring that digital document that you received to the Ministry of Foreign Affairs for an apostille on it. You can only get a digital apostille on the digitally issued document. And the trouble with that is that a lot of places do not accept digital apostille. So I'm going to get more into that later in this video, but the point is that adds to the confusion as well when it comes to apostilles. And one other thing that I jotted down is that what also adds to confusion is that a lot of documents that are eligible for apostilles. Okay, so let's use the example of originally issued marriage certificates. Again, not digitally issued marriage certificates, but let's say you have an originally issued marriage certificate that was handed to you from the rabbinate in Israel. Then the only way you can bring that originally issued marriage certificate to the Ministry of Foreign Affairs for an apostille is if you have a certification from the issuing rabbinate where you got the marriage certificate. If you have a certification from that rabbinate, which is by way of a sticker on the back of the marriage certificate, you need that sticker before you can bring the original marriage certificate to the Ministry of Foreign Affairs for an apostille. Okay, and there's other examples. For example, matriculation certificates known as Bagrut, Tudat Bagrut. You need a certification on the original Tudat Bagrut, the original matriculation certificate from the Ministry of Education, and so on and so on. On the Ministry of Foreign Affairs website, that lists the different documents that are eligible for apostilles. And again, I link that for you in my blog post. You can see what the requirements are based on the specific document that you need. But that also further lends to the confusion. And again, getting into every single type of different document and what has to be done for each document is beyond the scope of this video, but just know that there are various requirements depending on the type of document that you need. So all that by way of introduction to say that things can be very confusing for apostilles, and therefore I decided to do this video in conjunction with a blog post. So let's dive in to further expound on this. What is an apostille? Okay, first of all, because we're talking about apostilles. So an apostille, essentially, for our purposes anyways, just to keep it simple, is a sticker on the back of either the original Israeli issued document, as I talked about before. That's a sticker under the Hague Convention, which I'll get into in a second. That's known as an apostille sticker. Or if you're taking a notarization to the magistrate court, an apostille is a sticker on the inside of the notary cover page of the notarization. Okay, the way notarizations work in Israel is that there's a notary cover page. Let's say I authenticate your signature and you need an apostille on that authentication. There's a notary cover page that says I met with you on such and such date, etc., etc. That notary cover page binds together the document that you signed with a red ribbon of the notary along with my seal as a notary, and you take that red ribbon sealed notarization to the magistrate court for an apostille sticker, which they put on the inside of the notary cover page. So that's what an apostille is for our purposes. And the point of it is for members states, I should say, or member countries to the Hague Convention, to the Apostille Treaty, some people call it, but the member countries to the Hague Convention who all agree that we will accept each other's authenticated or certified documents as long as there's that apostille sticker. Okay, so a common example of member countries to the Hague Convention would be, for example, Israel, of course, and the United States. Okay, so if the United States wants to know that they can rely on a document of yours, they want to know that there's this apostille sticker on it. Okay, now it's also important to know, I'm going a bit out of order because there's so much information that when it comes to apostilles, you're not always asked for an apostille. Okay, so if you don't know if you need one, it's up to you. You can either clarify or you can try submitting a document without the apostille and hope that they don't ask you for it, but just know that that can delay the process if they do want the apostille. Some people prefer to ask in advance if you need the apostille, so just know apostilles aren't always necessarily asked for, but the general rule is that when you are relying on a document for use abroad, then the general rule is that apostilles are required. Now, which apostille is required, I'll get into later on in the video, but that as well can be very confusing. Okay, now I mentioned before the idea that there are digital apostilles. Okay, now what does that mean? So as of the date of this recording, when we're talking about the Ministry of Foreign Affairs digital apostilles, what that means is that there are certain documents that come with that come digitally, meaning you can go into your Azor Ishi, your personal area of the government website, and you can order online to be emailed to you a copy, or a digital, I should say, a digital original. Okay, it's not a copy, it's an original, but it's digital, a digital document for what you need. So for example, as of the date of this recording, you can get digitally birth certificates, population extracts, they're known as tamtzit rishum in Hebrew, marriage certificates, as I mentioned before, death certificates, matriculation certificates, bagrut, as I mentioned, and criminal background checks, tadpis midah plili in Hebrew. Those are all available digitally. And what that means is that because you can get those documents digitally, you cannot bring those digital documents to the Ministry of Foreign Affairs for an apostille. The only apostille available on digital documents is a digital apostille as well. Okay? So if your receiving party who's asking for the apostille on the original Israeli document says that they do not accept digital apostilles, then you must obtain the original document, not digitally. So, for example, if you have a death certificate you obtain digitally, but the receiving party says, no, it has to be an apostille from the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, an original sticker, then you have to go to the necessary issuing body. In the case of a death certificate, that would be the Ministry of Interior, and you ask them for a death certificate, an original one, which will be blue, and then you can bring that original death certificate to the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, okay? But the digital death certificate you cannot bring to the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. You can only get a digital apostille on the digital death certificate. Now, again, it could be that the receiving party will accept digital apostilles, in which case it's great. It's even easier than going to the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. But if not, then you have to obtain the original. And a small hack that I can tell you is that if you're already getting an original, ask for as many originals as you can because they can get lost. You may need to use one of the originals for a notarization, and when it gets notarized, there's holes that are punched through it with a red ribbon and stamped and sealed, and that can ruin the original document. So always get as many originals as you can once you're going. That's just a small hack. Okay, so that's with respect to digital apostilles for Ministry of Foreign Affairs. With respect to digital, I get asked this a lot as well. Can I get a digital apostille on a notarization? The answer to that is that only notarizations that are performed digitally are eligible for digital apostilles on those digital notarizations. As of the date of this recording, I've found that most, many, if not most, parties do not accept digital apostilles on notarizations. For whatever reason, they're just not big fans of those, and therefore I make it a practice to go get the physical apostilles from the magistrate court. But again, I'm not saying it's impossible, and you can do some more diligence on that if you want to try and see if you can get a digital apostille on the notarization that's digitalized. But bear in mind that the apostille process for magistrate court is not as onerous as the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. Again, subject to wartime as I record this video. But usually speaking, getting the apostille from the magistrate court is not as onerous, so you may as well get the physical apostille sticker as opposed to trying things digitally where there's a lot of risk where it may not be accepted. Okay, so we've talked about digital. So now let's go back. I alluded to this before, but let's talk about physical apostilles. Okay, so once again, let's say you're in a case where the receiving party will not receive a digital apostille, or you're in a situation where digital apostilles or digital documents are not available for what you need an apostille on, then you have to obtain the original document, as I mentioned, and you have to check if there are certain steps that are required before you proceed to take the original document to the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, as I alluded to before. So, for example, with a marriage certificate from the rabbinate, you've got to get that certification from the rabbinate, and then you can bring it to the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. I do suggest paying online. Currently the fee is 41 shekels per apostille, and you can pay that online. There's a link on my blog post as well, along with other information about that. And again, with respect to the magistrate court apostilles on the physical apostilles we're talking about, I do suggest paying online in advance as well. For the magistrate court, nowadays they ask for you to bring 2 receipts, funny enough. So try and print 2 receipts. Also bear in mind an important hack is that the payment place for the magistrate court apostille is different than the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. So don't pay the Ministry of Foreign Affairs apostille fee and expect to be able to bring that to the magistrate court. Those are 2 different bodies. There is a link on my blog post as to where you can pay for the magistrate court apostille versus where you can pay for the Ministry of Foreign Affairs apostille, because they are 2 different apostilles administered by 2 different government bodies. As I said, very confusing. Now, you may be asking yourself, okay, which apostille do I need? How do I know? Well, in some cases, the answer is very easy. So, for example, let's say you have a property in the United States and you were asked to sign documents for a closing. Well, that does not apply to the Ministry of Foreign Affairs because we're not talking about original Israeli issued documents. So the only possible apostille is on the notarization of those signature authentications on those closing documents, which is done at the magistrate court. By the way, another hack I mentioned to clients is that you should check with the receiving party to make sure that they're going to accept apostilles. By law, they have to, but I have found in my experience, some people have to check with their attorneys. They have to just verify. So just to make sure you dot your I's and cross your T's, make sure to check with the receiving party to ensure that they will accept this procedure. You should also bear in mind that in Israel, it is a procedure. It's not something that's done overnight. It's not a matter of just showing up and getting a stamp. There's work that has to be done to prepare, and it does take time to get the documents back to the receiving party. I use the United States as an example. It could be Europe. It could be any other member country to the Apostille Convention. So don't wait until the last minute. So that's an example of where you know clear cut that the only possible apostille is one from the magistrate court. In other cases, you're not sure, and you may have to, the receiving party who's asking for the apostille, they may not know themselves. Oftentimes they just say apostille. In such case, you can either ask and try and get further clarification. You can just get one of the apostilles and hope for the best, okay? Because there are some cases where both apostilles can apply. What would be an example of that? Let's say you have a death certificate that you were asked for an apostille on and a notarized translation. So you can get an apostille on the original death certificate. That's one type of apostille. And again, if they accept digital, then you can get a digital death certificate with a digital apostille on it. Then you can have the document translated by a notary such as myself and bring the notarized translation of the death certificate to the magistrate court for a second apostille, okay? Or if they're not accepting digital apostilles, then you can get the original death certificate from the Ministry of Interior, bring it to the Ministry of Foreign Affairs for an original apostille sticker, bring that death certificate to the notary to have translated, have that notarized, and then bring the notarization of the death certificate that was translated to the magistrate court rather, for a second apostille. So sometimes there's two different types of apostilles. So some clients prefer to do both to make sure they've covered all their bases, so to speak. Other clients prefer to try one and not the other. That's up to you if you want to try and get more clarity or hope for the best. But once again, if you don't have clarity and you submit the wrong thing, that can delay the process. Bear that in mind as well. So in terms of knowing which one you need, you can obviously reach out to myself here at Mr. Notary, and I'll try and point you in the right direction. Although again, even myself, when I get contacted, oftentimes I have to explain to clients, you know what, it can be one or the other, and it's up to you if you want to verify or just do both or do one of them. It's totally up to you. So I can't always tell you what the receiving party will require, but you can certainly ask me. So for example, if you send me closing documents, I can tell you right away, well, this is not eligible for an apostille from the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. Therefore, it must be something that applies to the magistrate court apostille and not the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. And again, there is a list on the Ministry of Foreign Affairs website going through all the different types of documents that are eligible and the requirements for each. I have linked you on my blog post to the Hebrew site because the English site, in my experience, is not as helpful and not as up to date. So hopefully you can, if you don't speak any Hebrew at all, you can use an AI type of tool like Google Translate or ChatGPT or whatever your favorite AI tool is to translate. May not be as reliable as as reading the original thing, but once again, you're welcome to reach out to myself here at Mr. Notary to get more clarity on that. And finally, that brings me to the closing of this video. I get asked a lot, do I need to be a notary to obtain an apostille? And the answer to that, the short answer is no. Okay, so when it comes to the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, you do not have to be a notary. When it comes to the magistrate court apostilles, those are on notarizations. So you don't have to be a notary, but you need to obtain the notarization from the notary in order to bring that to the magistrate court. Do not go to the magistrate court without a red ribbon sealed notarization from the notary. But the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, you do not need to have a notary at all. So why get a notary? As you see, things can be very confusing. So without the help of a notary such as myself, it can be very challenging. You can spend a lot of time, money, and aggravation doing the wrong thing or not getting the right type of apostille. So therefore, oftentimes, yes, there is an investment of money, but it definitely saves you a lot of headache and makes sure and ensures that you're doing the right thing. So that's the reason why a lot of people reach out to notaries just like myself to help you with your apostille needs. And that's a nice segue to end this video. If you do find that you need assistance with apostilles or any other notarization, feel free to reach out. The contact info is on our website. Have a look at our blog post as well to make sure you're as informed as possible. leave a comment below if there's something that you feel I didn't cover or something that's unclear. I would love to get your feedback so that I can address it in a future video and or respond to you directly in the comments section. Thanks for visiting the Mr. Notary YouTube channel. And until next time, I look forward to assisting you with any and all notarial and apostille needs. By the way, one other thing just to throw in there, I also am offering all sorts of other services, not necessarily just notarial or apostille. I do wills and continuing powers of attorney, which can involve for personal and healthcare and administrative business needs, etc., etc. So you can always reach out, and I will be happy to assist you and or point you in the right direction. Take care.